Politicons Book 2, written by Oliver Arnold and narrated by Adam 11 Labs. Chapter 10. A prowling beast traversed the jungle. It roamed in the tall grasses and behind the thick bushes. Like no creature of nature, it crawled on disjointed limbs, emitting ungodly bursts of guttural sound. Animals fled from it, and nature quieted where it strayed. This was neither beast nor man. It was Manney. His blazer was torn, hanging off in dangling shreds, and his body was covered in thick pubic fur. He strode, he sniffed, and he sprayed. Manney marked trees, snarled at animals, and chased a butterfly. Not even during his days among the proles had he enjoyed liberty this grand, furry and free. But there were rules in this wilderness, harsh rules. When the Polly encountered a snake, staring and hissing, he ran off, yelping. The jungle mocked him in many ways. Thorny vines slapped his snout and suit. His senatorial cufflinks caught on branches, jangling like wind chimes. Still he pressed on, driven by instincts he'd never possessed in committee rooms. His fur itched. His transformation wasn't complete. Patches of pink human skin showed through the coarse hair like bald spots on a mangy dog. Hunger struck the Manney Mall. Without game within sight or smell, Manney decided to cower behind a hole in waiting. Lacking any tool, plan, or skill, the Polly sat unmoving for hours, a skill gained in the Senate. After many eternities, his eyes finally caught the slightest of twitches, a sign of life in the hole. The Polly thrust forward and grasped whatever emerged from the opening with merciless brutality. A choked squeal burst from the tiny beast, and spastic twitches tickled Manney's paws as the captured animal struggled to break free. Manney chomped whatever he held, be it beast or dirt. Relief. The taste of fur, bone, and organs. A life in politics had brought his resilience for consuming distasteful things. Too soon, hunger returned. He paused, picked the crawlies from his head, and crunched them. They were fun to chew. Their shells popped between his molars like bubble wrap. He discovered ants had a peppery bite, while termites dissolved into protein paste. An intriguing scent brought Manney to a cluster of orb-headed mushrooms near a tree. Manney smelled them and took a nibble. They tasted bitter. Then came the effect. The trees above Manney swayed without wind. Their branches bent down and reached for him. Manney, though, wasn't afraid of the friendly foliage. Before the branches could touch him, the ground opened, and he sank. He dropped and flew in a void before squirming tree roots caught him, forming a trampoline to shoot Manney back up into the light, where the world merged into a swirl, and Manney swam away. Colors bled into each other like watercolors in rain. The sky became purple, then green, then a shade that had no name. Suddenly, his paws looked enormous, then tiny, then multiplied into dozens of appendages waving in all directions. Time stretched like taffy. Minutes felt like hours. Hours collapsed into seconds. He tried to count his heartbeats but lost track after 3. Or was it 300? The mushrooms spoke to him in voices much like the GMs. They promised funding, votes, and media coverage. He tried to negotiate but only produced barks and whimpers. Manney knew this was all a fantasy, relaxed, and soiled himself. After an undetermined time, a jumble of voices rose. People, many figures streamed in from all sides. They appeared unlike the humans Manney was used to, much smaller, transparent, and with enormous bellies. Funny looking. Some wore lipstick on their mouths and elsewhere, or even rouge on their cheeks. Just how did his mind come up with this stuff? Manney relaxed, went with it, and soiled himself. He watched the little guys as they crawled up his arms and chest. Along the way, they brought ropes, tiny little ropes, and they began to wrap those ropes all around his limbs. Manney giggled. "Stop that, you guys!" Their tiny hands tickled worse than his fur. They smelled like vanilla and wet earth. Some hummed while they worked. Others chattered in squeaky voices about rope tension. A few appeared to be taking measurements. One kept sketching him on what looked like a leaf. Next, they brought great stakes and secured the lines to them. Manney looked left and right. It smelled of decay and new growth, the eternal cycle of jungle life. Manney watched the little ones with fascination, wondering if they'd taste better than beetles. "What have we here?" said a little person after Manney was secured. "What is it?" "Let's cut it open and see what's inside," replied another. More voices rose. "We eats it?" "Let's take it to the queen." "Nay, we keep it to ourselves." "Let's make it a beautiful rug for our beautiful queen." "No." Suddenly, a louder, more determined voice said, barking, "Leave him unharmed and secure him to the traverser." The traverser turned out to be a cart made of bones and branches lashed together with sinew. It creaked and groaned under Manney's weight. The wheels were cross-sections of enormous tree trunks. As they rolled, the cart left deep ruts in the jungle floor. Manney drifted in and out while the little ones moved him onto the cart. On his journey, he met friendly plants, shook branches, and conversed. The plants had opinions about everything. A flowering vine complained about the weather, too much rain, then too little. A palm tree gossiped about which animals had been marking its trunk. A cluster of orchids critiqued his grooming habits with brutal honesty. None of them seemed surprised that he could understand them. In this place, apparently, everything talked if you listened right. Again, his bladder released without warning or shame. The warm wetness spread across his belly and legs. The little ones made disgusted noises but didn't stop pushing the cart. One held its nose with tiny fingers. Another muttered something about house training. Manney entered an open torch-lighted area that was busy with torches and hundreds of tiny ones. Drum beats and chants filled the air. "This is really trippy," the Polly admitted to himself. The experience surpassed anything he'd imagined these psychedelic voyages could produce. The torches cast shadows that moved independently of their flames. Some shadows had too many arms, others had no heads. A few seemed to be waving at him. He waved back with his paw. The drums weren't drums at all, he realized. They were enormous seed pods being struck with femur bones. The sound echoed off stone walls he hadn't noticed before. Cave paintings covered the rock surfaces, stick figures hunting, dancing, copulating, dying. Primitive but expressive. Art from the dawn of consciousness. Suddenly, two towering, meaty trees entered his field of view. The trees grew boobs. Curious. A change of scenery. He studied them from different angles. Then the two giant barrels of a shotgun filled his field of view. "Jack?" a familiar voice suddenly said. "What are you doing here?" The voice cut through his chemical haze like a blade through butter. Real, solid, undeniably familiar. "Taking a dip," replied Manney, slurring. "Who are you?" "Polling. Your fellow senator." Right, that's why he recognized the voice. Senator Polling, committee meetings, filibusters, campaign finance hearings. The real world crashed back into his consciousness. She looked different here, taller, more commanding. She wore leather and carried weapons. Her hair was wild, her eyes fierce. This wasn't the same woman who wore pantsuits and pearl earrings to budget meetings. Polling looked him over. She removed shroom remnants from Manney's fur and rubbed the traces between her fingers. Smelling the rancid pulp, she understood. Her expression shifted from confusion to comprehension to disgust. She'd seen plenty of senators in compromising positions, but this was new territory. The mushroom bits were slimy, purple-black, and reeked of spoiled meat. She'd heard stories about these particular fungi, how they could transform a person's consciousness, their very essence. Looking at Manney now, she wondered if the changes weren't for the better. "We eats it! We eats it!" the Dooms shouted. Their enthusiasm was disturbing. They brandished tiny forks and knives, licking their miniature lips with transparent tongues. Some had already started small cooking fires, setting up spits and cauldrons barely large enough for a mouse. They argued over which parts would be most tender, which seasonings would work best. Manney tried to follow their debate, but their voices kept overlapping, creating a cacophony of culinary excitement. "No!" Polling gestured to free Manney. She was unsure what to make of this devious side of the Dooms. She would need answers if she were to be an effective queen, but that was for later. "Get up," she commanded Manney. The Manney male rolled around, remaining on all fours. Polling fashioned a loop from paracord and placed it around Manney's neck. She then produced a tack, ripped off Manney's tie, pinned it to his rump, and said, "You have a leash, you have a tail, you're going to be my pet." The leash felt natural around his neck, better than the starched collars he'd worn for decades. The tie made an excellent tail, Silk, expensive, a perfect symbol of his former status now relegated to marking his rear end. He wagged it experimentally and found the motion oddly satisfying. Being a pet seemed like a step up from being a senator, though the job requirements were similar. Loyalty, obedience, and occasional tricks. He'd been performing tricks for the GM his entire career. This couldn't be much different. He barked once, experimentally. The sound emerged as more of a yip than a proper bark, but it seemed to please Poling. She scratched behind his ears with surprising gentleness. The sensation sent shivers of pleasure through his body. When was the last time anyone had touched him with simple affection? "Good boy," she said, and Manney's tail wagged harder. You've heard the 10th chapter of Politicons 2, written and produced by Oliver Arnold.